That's actually a great segue into what I was going to ask next was so Call Me Mother. So obviously after Drag Race, you had that amazing opportunity and everything, and then so Call Me Mother comes along. Um, as I sort of said to you before we started, so I've only seen clips of Call Me Mother because we don't get it in the UK, as far as I'm aware. I haven't been able to find it on any platform. I've seen sort of clips of it and read about it. So I was wondering if you could perhaps talk a bit about it because my audience might also not quite know what it is.
Yeah. I always tell people that my experience on the show was both awful and the best time ever, all wrapped up into one. Um, there was just let's start with the beginning. I kind of just did it because I didn't get onto Drag Race, which was like that's totally fine. I totally understood. And I had applied for Call Me Mother the year before, and at that time I did that was before we had filmed Drag Race. And that I had even known that I was going to be doing Drag Race. So I applied for the show. It didn't have a name just yet. But I had seen that it was just essentially an opportunity for young drag artists to grow and become better drag artists in a competitive setting. And that was kind of what they had told us the format was going to be like. And I was so for it because, again, as I had said, there's so many things about my drag that I didn't fully get just as yet, that I feel like the show brought out of me. Um, and unfortunately, the things that I learned about my drag was through the pain of the show. So unfortunately, I was in the bottom um every episode from episode 3 onward to the finale. And I didn't get it. I It didn't make sense to me. I felt like I was putting my absolute all into it. And when I got home and the show was finally out, everyone agreed. Like it was kind of just like you put Makayla in the bottom for no real reason. It didn't necessarily feel justified. And so that's kind of what I was talking about when it's like, I know the production so well, but because of, how they've, talked with the judges about stuff and, how they made things seem, it just, I can't see them in a good light anymore because of that experience. It just really altered um, you know, how I see drag TV. And you would want it to be something joyful and loving, especially because the show they said over and over again, they drilled it to us that like we don't want to be like Drag Race. We want to make this as much of a loving experience as possible. And we want you all to grow as artists. And it's like you say all of that, but then you have multiple artists going home with a freaking like therapy bill longer than I don't know what we paid to get to do the show, you know? So it that's just the unfortunate part. But again, as I was saying, through all of that pain, I then rediscovered my drag persona, and I feel like I've elevated myself 10 times more than I was when I first started that show or when I had filmed Drag Race and prior to that. So I'm very happy with where I am now. And I guess I'm not going to be like, thank you for giving me trauma because it helped me become a better artist. But, after the show, I did realize that I am and I can be so much more, and that my placement in a show does not dictate who I am as a person. I talked too much. I'm going to sip some tea.
That's fine. I mean, you're a drag performer. They love to talk. We all do. Like that's that's what we're all here for. I've been told the same thing, and I'm not even a drag performer. So. Well, no, I mean, so yeah, so obviously, like, sorry that you had that experience, I guess. So, I mean, I'd love to sort of delve into that a little bit more if that's okay. But first, in terms of Call Me Mother, if I'm correct, tell me if I'm wrong. So the way it works is it's called Call Me Mother because there are judges and they're like the mother of a house, and you're a bit like The Voice without singing. You are getting into their house. So like Peppermint from season 9 of Drag Race, even though she's not Canadian, is one of the judges, right? And you were in her house, I believe.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then every week someone goes home, but you're I guess it almost a bit like X Factor, maybe, but for drag in that sense, because you've got like someone who's your mentor, I guess is probably the best word.
Yeah, no, exactly that. It's kind of like it's like a drag version of The Voice where, you're put into a house, you're all working together, and this is kind of where I lost the we want you to grow as drag artists. There was no point where there was actual learning. Like I think that was the part that I was missing. It was like, how do I better myself if there's one, no critiques that are actually bettering me? Like a lot of the things that they would say on the runway were more so like put downs, and it was like, okay, you can like say you don't like a certain thing, but then because your show is about growing as artists, how do I then elevate what you're talking about? Like if you want me to put stones on it, say I need you to start stoning your runways. If you want me to start wearing gowns, say you don't want to see bodysuits, you want to see gowns. Or if you see a pair of shoes, then you're like, I don't want to see those shoes anymore. Say you want to see new shoes on the runway. And that's just like little things that I heard from everyone's critiques that I was just like, okay, then why don't you tell them exactly what you're looking for instead of just saying, you look like garbage? Okay, well, then where do I go from there? You know what I mean?
I guess, yeah, we've seen it on Drag Race as well, that sometimes the critiques are probably done more because it makes good television rather than it being actually constructive and helpful.
Exactly. And it doesn't help the competitor because then they're kind of stuck there like, well, you want me to change something, but you're not telling me exactly what it is I need to change. Or it's a change that's so out of like, out of my world where, sometimes they've told people your wardrobe is just too basic. And it's like, well, I'm not a designer, so how do I now teach myself how to sew in my hotel room and create an even better, garment? It's a little harder when there's not much help from there. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does, especially as someone young and like that. The whole point of the show, from what I read, was it's about up and coming drag performers, and it's very inclusive. So it's not just drag queens like on Drag Race. It's like drag kings and non-binary people, and like lots of different types of drag. So in terms of, obviously, you were in the house of, is it Dulcet,
Yes.
which is Peppermint's house. So how much interaction did you have with Peppermint then?
A lot actually. How filming worked was we usually had either 2 to 4 days of filming an episode. So there would be essentially like 1 or 2 full days where I'm just with Peppermint. Like our whole house is with Peppermint, and we're wow, English is leaving my brain right now, where we're working together and just like collaborating and trying to like, create whatever our main challenge is, like, talking about that a lot and trying to put that all together. And then on the following day, that's like the decision day where, they figure out who's top, bottom, et cetera, et cetera. And that's usually the day where we're not with Peppermint. So typically a full 24 hours before, we go onto the runway.
Okay, that's interesting to know, because I always wondered on shows like The Voice, I always wondered how much time you actually get with the judges, because I mean, obviously The Voice is slightly different, but obviously these people are quite well known. Like Peppermint's very well known, so I always wonder, with all the production schedule, how much time they actually get, whether it's just what we see on camera, whether they are very kind of like personable and actually speak to you, or if it's only a relationship for camera.
My brain's turning to see if like what can I the show. I don't really care. We're just gonna say whatever. So I would say almost most of the time, almost all the time. When we were working with Peppermint, and this is not, she's a businesswoman. She is a busy woman, and like I totally get it. But when it came to the show, I personally feel like she wasn't always there with us. Like she would be in the room, but maybe she's helping us out and sending an email or texting or having a little snack, et cetera, et cetera. And like, this isn't to, diminish, the help that she provided for some of us, but I'm someone who needs a lot of individual attention. And I felt like when I left the show, I literally was like, I don't feel like I learned anything from her because I didn't really get a lot of time by myself to just like, actually learn. It was just a lot of me watching her send an email and get ready for whatever event she was, getting ready for. I thought it was
Yeah.
hilarious. I kind of wish it stayed in. But so during the prom episode on Drag Race, um, when they were critiquing Adriana and Friday, her partner, um, Brooklyn said, and I think this part's in the episode, Brooklyn says that the outfit is stunning and that she would wear it. And both me and Isis went, huh? Like real loud. And at the exact same time, like same head movement and everything. And like we both think it's hilarious because it's just like again another moment to show that like we are so similar.
A negative experience. Would you therefore say, like, if you could go back in time, would you have not done it?
Mm. See, and I've been asked this before, and it's always such a hard question to respond to because it's a bit of both. Yeah, I don't know what I can and can't say. What I can say is I'm definitely not on season 4. For all of those rumors that think that I've auditioned, I have not. Well, I did audition, but I unfortunately did not get on.